Thank you so much for joining our professional etiquette webinar. We're super excited to bring this to you today. My name is Kasnakara. I am the Director of College Success. And along with my team, we are here to provide you all the resources that you need to get you to and through college. So really excited, like I said, to bring this for you. The team and I are going to be presenting on this. Normally, sometimes we have special guests, but for this one, we wanted to actually do it ourselves. So I am going to let my colleagues / co-presenters introduce themselves as well. So we'll start with Olivia, and then Mauro, you can go ahead after.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Olivia De La O, and I'm one of the College Success Advisors. Yeah, like Gus said, we're going to be presenting for you today, so I'm happy y'all were able to make it. And yeah, if you're interested in looking at it after, we'll be uploading it.
And hi, everyone. My name is Mauro Perez. Happy Thursday. Yeah, just thank you all for being here. We're definitely looking forward to facilitating this for you all. And if you have questions, just feel free to drop them in the chat.
So today we're going to be talking about professional etiquette and the different things that tie into professional etiquette. We want to make sure, and we're of course we're a college success program, but I think we also want to prepare you for life through college and after college. And I think it's so important to have professional etiquette. And sometimes for various reasons, there's little things that we just don't learn along the way. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to learn them here today. And of course, it's always going to be a continuing growing experience. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Like I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about professional etiquette. So we want to start by defining what professional etiquette is, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So first, we'll start with what etiquette is in general, right? So etiquette is the customary code of polite behavior in society or among members of a particular profession or group. A lot of times when I think of etiquette, or at least before, putting this presentation together, sometimes you think of, when you're having like a fancy dinner, like where does your salad fork go versus your meal fork or things like that, right? Don't put your elbows on the table. And that all consists of etiquette, right? It's essentially kind of having like proper manners and how to behave in society, how to behave in particular situations. So that's what etiquette means in general. And of course, that's definitely important to know and to learn that. And for those of you that maybe haven't, I'm sure you'll have an opportunity to do so. But today we're going to focus more on professional etiquette. So what professional etiquette is, it's about presenting yourself with polish and professionalism that demonstrates you can be trusted and taken seriously. So when you're in a professional setting, there are certain cues that you have to meet or that you have to do. And sometimes, for whatever reason, maybe you're a little bit too comfortable or you just have never been in a professional setting, you might say or do something that maybe you just shouldn't have done during that particular situation. And today, some of the things that we're going to be discussing are what you can do to prepare or to better prepare yourself for those situations. And we want to make sure that you're well equipped for when you start your first internship, your first job, maybe when you're speaking to a professor, when you're emailing somebody. It's really just important to have as many tools in your arsenal as possible. So those are some of the things that we're going to be covering today. But like I said, I wanted to make sure that we all have an understanding of what etiquette or specifically professional etiquette is. So throughout the presentation, we're going to be covering email etiquette. We're going to be covering phone etiquette, first impressions, social media etiquette, different things that we feel are important. Of course, there are so many other things that we might not be covering today. We only have about an hour with you today. Like I said, I want to make sure that we end by no later than 5. But these are some of the most important things that we thought were relevant to our students and to some of the situations that you might face. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're going to start by covering email etiquette. I think email etiquette is super important. And sometimes it's easy to just go ahead and want to write a quick email without necessarily proofreading it. So we want to start, or I want to start this by saying, or by going over 5 rules of email etiquette. The first one is super basic or super straightforward, but take a closer look before sending. Once again, sometimes you're in a rush to send an email, or if you're like me, you kind of just look at it on your phone and you think everything looks good, everything sounds good, and you just go ahead and press the send button. And then once you send it, you look at it again, you realize like, oh my God, like there's so many things that are misspelled, punctuation marks are all over the place. Like you try to reread the email and it doesn't even make sense to you and you're the one that sent it. You definitely don't want that to happen in a professional setting, right? Because it just leaves the wrong impression. So just proofread your things. You've been told since you started writing, proofread. That does not go away. So make sure that when you're sending an email, that you take a closer look before sending, and not just necessarily the content or the body of what you're sending, but make sure that you're sending it to the right person. You don't want that to happen. You don't want to be, saying something that you shouldn't be saying to someone else, or whatever the case might be. Just take a closer look. The second one is don't use all caps. And I don't think this issue is as prominent anymore, but sometimes some of us have or used to use all caps. So just make sure you don't do that. It comes off really like you're being aggressive over an email. If you use all caps, if I see someone sending me all caps, I'm like, wow, this person is really, really mad. They're upset, or they really want to get their message across. So the only time I would ever use all caps is if I really want to highlight something. So if there's a specific event or something that I really want to stand out, then maybe I'll use all caps. But even then, I'd rather use bold or underline it or something like that. But yeah, sometimes that's really the only instances that I will ever use all caps in email. So unless, like I said, you really want to highlight something, avoid using all caps. The third one is use acronyms sparingly. So I think there are certain emails that you can send where you can use acronyms. So for example, if I'm emailing some of my colleagues, if I'm emailing Olivia or Mauro at this point, obviously we're a little bit more comfortable with each other. I'd be okay with using certain acronyms with them. However, if I'm emailing somebody that's outside of fulfillment fund, I probably would avoid that. I would want to just make sure that I spell everything out. So, this example is hi Q for you, right? Question for you. Can you please RSVP ASAP in real life? Thanks in advance. Talk to you later, Jessica. Right? You definitely would. I would never send anything like this. Honestly, I wouldn't even send this over text. And of course, this is an extreme example, but just make sure to avoid any type of, to avoid acronyms. Like I said, use them sparingly. There are some acronyms where you might be able to use in an email, like ASAP, I think is not too bad. As long as it's within the right context, if you want to use an acronym like that. But other than that, like I said, if you're sending a professional email to either your supervisor or someone that you work with or something like that, just avoid acronyms if you can. The other one is compress your attachments. If you're going to send a very large attachment, make sure it's not too big. Try to compress it as much as you can. The last thing you want is to have all these attachments. Only send the attachments that are necessary to be sent within an email. If they're not necessary, then don't send them. And of course, always refer to your attachments, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. So just make sure that you only send the necessary attachments, and if they're too large, make sure that you compress them. Sometimes attachments are super huge, and I've received attachments where it takes me like 5 minutes to open the email because it's trying to load the attachment. So that's the last thing that you want when you're sending an email to somebody. And the last thing, which I think is also super important, let people know that their email has been received. Something so simple, yet goes a long way. Sometimes someone will send you an email, and it's not that you didn't read it, it's just that you don't have what they're asking you for yet, right? So if someone emails me and say, hey guys, can you send me these files or whenever you have them ready? And in my head, I'm like, I don't have them ready. I'm probably gonna have them ready like next week. I don't have them ready, right? So I'm gonna just use Olivia. Let's just say Olivia's like, hey guys, can you please send me these files? I need them. And I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, yeah, of course. As soon as I get them, Olivia, I'm gonna send them to you. But Olivia can't read my mind. She doesn't know that that's what I'm thinking. And Olivia said, she's like, did he receive my email? He hasn't replied to me. It's been like a week already. And in my head, I'm like, as soon as I get these files, I'm gonna send them over to Olivia, right? But in her head, she's like, I don't know if he get them. Like, should I email him again? Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, we don't read minds. So proper etiquette, proper email etiquette would be, hi Olivia, I received your email. I'm hoping to have these files ready by next week. I will get them to you by July 21st, just to say a random date, right? And now Olivia knows, okay, cool, he got my email. She knows when to expect a follow-up email from me. And of course, if for whatever reason I don't have those emails ready, I can follow up. Hey, I know I said I was going to get them to you July 21st. Just give me one more day and I'll get them to you. But just as long as I give her that heads up, like, hey, I got your email. I promise I'll get this to you in a few days. I have these other things going on, but I will get that to you ASAP. That's so simple. And I've done that myself too, where like I said, someone sent me an email and in my head, I'm like, okay, I'll reply as soon as I have it ready, and you just forget. And before you know it, your emails, like your inbox is getting flooded and you just completely forget about that email. And then they follow up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just completely forgot to send that to you. So just like I said, word of just proper etiquette. As soon as you get that email, reply to them and then maybe pin that email. That way you know to reply to that at a later time. So these are just some do's and don'ts of email etiquette. So we'll start with the do's. So some do's of email etiquette is use a clear subject. A lot of times, sometimes I've received emails where students or anybody in general just don't use subjects at all. So I have no idea, or, it's like a blank subject line. That's not good. Or a very confusing subject where it's like, I have no idea what you're saying. Or sometimes they'll write hello on the subject line. It's like, that's not what I want to see in a subject line. In a subject line, it's you're basically you're summarizing what your email is going to be about. And I'm going to show you an example in the next slide of what an email should look like, or a basic email should look like. So clear subject. So if you're I don't know, if you're in marketing and you're writing about a specific strategy report, then strategy report on your subject line. If you're in education and you're writing about a specific student, or about what an issue is, then maybe that's what you list on your subject line. But make sure that it's clear, that it's concise. And also another good thing about subject lines is sometimes you might have to refer to that email at a later time. So if you have a specific subject, it's a lot easier to search that email later. I know what's happened to you because it's happened to me, where I'm searching, I need to find an email that someone sent me a few weeks ago or that I sent someone. And the easiest way to do it is go to your search box and you search for whatever, keyword you can think of. So if you have those keywords in your subject line, they're a lot easier to find. So like I said, make sure to have a clear subject line. Second one, use a greeting. Super easy, super simple, but yet a lot of people don't do it. Use a greeting. I've received emails where someone just straight up goes into the question. So if someone needs a report, just to, like I said, make a random example, like, I open the email and it says, when are you going to get me that report? Like, that's no way to receive an email, right? You would never do that to someone in person. Can you picture yourself going to one of your coworkers and not saying anything, just going up to them like, when are you going to give me my report? That's like so rude, right? No, you would say, hey, good morning. Hey, good afternoon. Hey, how are you? And then like, hey, by the way, do you have that report for me? And like, okay, yeah, whatever, etc. So just like you would never do something like that in person, you would never do that over email. So just like, hey, Mauro, hey, Olivia, hey, Ashley, hi, Ashley, hello, whatever, right? It's just a simple greeting goes a long way. I know intentions aren't to make it sound rude or anything like that, but when you're opening an email, it can come off that way. So that's the last thing that you want to do. Keep it concise, short and sweet. The last thing that you would want to receive are super long emails. I'm sure we've all received super long emails where you honestly just get lost and you have no idea what you're reading. That's the worst. When I receive super long emails, I'm just like, I don't even want to read through this. It's just so hard to go through. So just try to keep it as concise as possible. There are going to be emails that might have to be a little bit longer. If I know I have to send a long email because it's just something I can't really get around, use bullet points, use numbers, use something to separate them so it's easier to read, easier on the eyes. The last thing you want is like one big chunk and you're just kind of trying to read through that and it's just impossible. So try to keep it concise if you can. And if it's too long, then maybe that's when you meet in person, right? If you have to write an email that's long where it's paragraphs, then maybe it's like, you know what, this may be something that we might want to meet in person or via Zoom or a phone call. Check your grammar. Super straightforward. I'm not even going to go too much into detail on that, but make sure that you're not misspelling all these different things. It just looks unprofessional. That's not a good look for you. So make sure that you're spelling correctly. And now more than ever, there's it's auto, like there's that spell check, right? If you misspell something, little red squiggly lines, like it tells you straight up. So there is no excuse for this one. So make sure to check your grammar. Reply in a timely manner. I kind of touched a little bit on that before. Make sure if someone emails you, you're not replying 2 weeks later. Usually proper etiquette is to reply within 24 to 48 hours. And even if you don't, like I mentioned before, even if you don't have what they need, just let them know that you received their email and that you'll get them that information that they need whenever you have it. You can even give them a timeline, like, hey, I'll get back to you by said date. Use a signature if possible. If it's your personal email, you don't have to do anything too crazy. You can just, your signature can be your like, for example, when I reply for my Gmail, my signature is just like Gus Nakana. And I think, for example, some of you sometimes reply via your phones. If you just like it'll say like sent from my iPhone or sent from whatever. So just change that to your last name. I'm sorry, your first and last name or something like that. Your signature, just it's so much easier. It looks a little bit cleaner. It looks like you tried. Like you don't want people thinking like, oh, they're just replying from their phone. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it looks like you put in a little bit more effort when you have that signature. And of course, the last one, but by this point, you're all college students, so I would assume everybody here has a professional email. Usually, a professional email includes some iteration of your first and last name. So of course, if you have more of a common name, you probably will have to throw some numbers in there. That's 100% okay. But just make sure that it's professional, that it's not, some type of character that you're into. If you're, if you're into Iron Man, it's not like Iron Man 143, right? You want to make sure that it's as professional as possible. And then really quick, some don'ts. Don't use any overwhelming font. Don't use Comic Sans on your email. Keep it professional. Use, Arial or Times New Roman or something like that. Calibri, I think, is also pretty popular right now. So you can use some of those fonts, but don't use anything, like I said, too overwhelming. I already talked about it last time. Don't use all caps. Don't use too many abbreviations. We already talked about that. Don't be inappropriate in your emails. Anything, that you wouldn't say in front of your supervisor, don't be saying that in an email, because especially if you're at work, those emails are company property. So at any point, your company can legally audit your emails. So even if you're sending something to your coworker, thinking that like, oh yeah, like I made sure that I didn't send it to my boss. If your boss wanted to, they can go into their database and they can easily read your emails. So just avoid that. Don't do that. Don't be inappropriate. Don't send long emails. We already talked about that. And don't email while upset. And this one is just, I'm sure at one point or another, we've all received emails that maybe we just weren't too big of a fans of. Like the person that emailed us maybe came off wrong. Maybe we felt offended to whatever they had to say. So just take your time, kind of relax, breathe in, breathe out, compose your thoughts, and then reply to that email. The last thing you want is you're very upset. You reply to the email, and maybe you replied something that wasn't too positive, and that goes out there, and that's out now for the world to see. And then you reread the email, and you're like, "Ooh, maybe I took the email the wrong way." Sometimes it's really easy, to misinterpret emails because it's hard to show emotion via email. So maybe the person in your head was being rude, but maybe they just didn't think too much of it, and they were just, they just sent an email and they didn't think too much of it, and now there's this huge conflict. So you want to make sure that that's avoided. All right, we're almost done here. So composing an email, pretty straightforward. So who's it from, right? So it's going to be from you, so that one's pretty easy. Who's it to? So in the email example that I have, I'm sending an email to Mauro. And who, so for those of you that don't know what CC and BCC means, CC means carbon copy, BCC means blind carbon copy. So in this case, I'm sending an email to Mauro, but I want Olivia to be in the loop. So it's not going directly to Olivia, but I want Olivia to know what I'm sending Mauro. So maybe it relates to Olivia, or maybe Olivia needs to know about this email too, even though it's being directly sent to Mauro. So I am copying Olivia in the email. And BCC, you won't use this too often, at least not casually, but blind carbon copy is essentially someone receives this email, but they don't know. So what we do, for example, sometimes we need to send big emails or emails to a lot of students. So we'll use blind carbon copy. So what that means is we understand your emails can be private, so we don't want all of you to know each other's emails. So in that case, we will blind carbon copy you. So we can send hundreds of emails that are blind carbon copy, but you would only see who it's coming from and who's being CC'd. And you've received those emails from us in the past, where now I'm like, hey everybody, or hello FF scholars, right? Like those are the ones, and I'm sure they're a little bit more generic. So those are the ones that you're probably being blind carbon copied, right? They're not personalized. I'm not saying like straight up like, hi Maria, hi Andrew, hi Catherine. I'm saying more of like, hey everybody. And that's because you're probably being blind carbon copy. Like I said, it's kind of more, nobody really knows who's on that blind carbon copy list, and you can't see anybody else besides who is it going to and who's being CC'd. Subject, once again, clear, concise subject. So in this case, I'm emailing Mauro about FF, Fulfillment for University Day 1 attendance. So in this case, it's okay to abbreviate. If I write out Fulfillment Fun University Day 1 attendance, it's going to go up to like over here, right? That's super long. So I'm just abbreviate it quick and easy. The body, greetings, hello. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. Hi, Mauro. That's a good enough greeting for me. Super easy, super straightforward, but it's a greeting. And the message, keep it concise. As you can see, the message here is about 4 or 5 sentences, super concise. So my email to Mauro is, hi, Mauro, hope you're doing well. I'm reaching out because I would like your help sorting out the FFU Day 1 attendance sheet. Can you please look it over and let me know if all the students that attended are on the sheet? I have attached the sheet in this email. Please complete this by Friday, July 22nd. Thank you, and let me know if you have any questions. Super easy, super straightforward. I refer to the attachment that I have on there, so he knows what my attachment is. It's also important, if you're gonna attach something, to name your attachment. Don't just have like a random name, or sometimes when you attach something, the generic name is like these numbers and letters like FUW678194 whatever. And we open, we're like, what the heck is this attached? We have no idea what it is. So if it's your transcripts, name them your transcripts. If it's your student aid report, name it your student aid report. It's so much easier for it to be read. And I also needed something by a certain deadline. So I asked Mauro, can you please complete this by Friday, July 22nd? So now Mauro knows, hey, I need to send this, or I need to complete this by Friday, July 22nd. Super short, concise, but I know what I was referring to, and it's easy for Mauro to read. And then of course, Mauro, when he gets this, he's gonna let me know. Thank you guys, I received your email. I'll be sure to send that over to you by July 22nd. And lastly, signature. So I use best when I sign off. So best, and then this is my signature, right? But this is like my work signature. So I don't expect you guys to have like these long titles. Like I said, when I email from my Gmail, it's just like, I think I still use best. It's just best and then Gus Nahab. I'm not gonna have my title on my Gmail, like my work title on my Gmail. So you can just have best and Gus Nahab, or best and whatever, obviously whatever your name is. Olivia, I think you use best as well. You can use other ones. I'm not sure if you have one model. But sincerely, with appreciation, I've seen regards. There's so many different ones that you can have. Whatever you feel is good for you, you can go ahead and use that. And like I said, include your first and last name in your signature. All right, and I'm not going to go over this in too much detail, but you can see these later. We'll probably attach this for you, but it's just different ways to email or to say something in a different type of setting. So for example, if you're trying to say something like, it took a while, but I know it's not too big of a deal, instead of saying sorry for the delay, you can say, thank you for your patience. It sounds a little bit nicer. You're letting them know like, hey, I appreciate it. I know I took a little bit longer, but I thank you for I appreciate your patience. And let's see, what's another good one. This one, wording this is hard, right? So rewriting an email, trying to figure out exactly what you're going to say. It's like, an email you can only put so long. Maybe you can email this, and I've done this before, like, hey, maybe this will be easier to discuss in person. When you're sending this super long email and you're like trying to figure out exactly what to say, yeah, that's not a good look. Maybe it's easier to discuss it in person. We got something on the chat. When can I expect an update? Sounds so demanding. When can I expect an update? Where is that one? Oh, for this one, where the heck are we on this? What can I expect an update? I think I get what you're saying. I think it just depends on the setting. I think what this is trying to say, because I've used the first one, just wanted to check in, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Olivia and Mauro can tell you that I've done that before. Hey team, just wanted to check in. Where are we on this? Right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's fine. I think the when can I expect an update, what they're trying to say more is don't beat around the bush. Right? So if you need something by a certain time, just let them know. Like, hey, like for example, that email that I sent, I told Mauro I need it by July 22nd, right? So just let them know, like, hey, I really need this by this timeline. Can you give it to me by this time? So I think as long as you're not like, this is not just the only thing that you send, as long as there's some context involved, I think it should be fine. But of course, yeah, you never want to come off as demanding or rude, or that you're not like a team player. So, but yeah, thank you for that comment. No, I agree. Like, yeah, if I get something like this without any context, I'd be like, wow, like chill, relax, right? I'll get it to you. I told you I would get this to you. So I 100% say I see where you're coming from. Yeah, and I'm not going to go through the rest of these because I want to make sure that the team has the rest of the time to go through these. But we'll be sure to share this with you at a later time. It's just, like I said, a good way of just rewriting some different things. So without further ado, I am going to pass the baton over to Mauro.
Yes, thank you, guys. Excuse me. So I'm going to be going over phone etiquette. So I know that for some of us, jumping on the phone might be, you all might be super comfortable. Maybe at some point throughout, or at some point every day, you're on the phone with a friend, a family member, maybe somebody from school. However, on the opposite end, there are those individuals that maybe get a little bit shy when jumping on the phone. I know I can put myself in that boat. I wasn't always 100% comfortable asking a question, or even like trying to figure out, wait, like, so how do I ask this? Like, if the answer, what do I say? I definitely remember asking myself those questions when, again, when I didn't have to be on the phone as often as I am now. So just a couple of things that we want to keep in mind. hours of operation. So this is more specific to when, say, for example, you're calling, admissions and records or financial aid or, some other location on campus that has specific hours, right? We have here standard hours, 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Just be ready to either be on hold, if you're calling before 8 a.m. or be ready to leave a voicemail if you're calling after 6 p.m. We'll definitely go over voicemails as well in the next few slides. But similarly, if say, for example, you have a mentor, whether it's a teacher, a professor, an administrator, and they give you their direct line, same thing, be mindful of these hours of operation, right? Sometimes calling before 8 a.m. could be too early, right? Maybe they're just waking up, getting their breakfast going, or, having their coffee. And then maybe after 6 p.m., they have other obligations. Maybe they have family, maybe they're, just up to something else and they need to take care of that. So again, just be mindful of the times that you are trying to contact somebody. Similarly to an email, when it comes to, you actually getting somebody on the phone, be polite, right? The tone that you set in a phone call definitely carries throughout the conversation. So we have an important point here, greetings, right? Greetings through phone are just as important as they are through email. I can't tell you how many times a student has called in, I'll say, hi, my name is Mauro. How can I help you? And immediately they kind of jump into, what they need help with, which is, great. Maybe their question is a little bit urgent, but I also want to know who I'm talking to, right? So good morning, good afternoon. Hi, my name is so-and-so. I have a question about this, or this is why I'm calling. It really provides that context, right? So say, for example, you're calling your financial aid office. Hi, my name is Mauro. My student ID number is XYZ, and I have a question about this. All right, great. So now that other person kind of has an idea of why you're calling in, right? Same thing. If say you're calling, a mentor, an administrator. Hi, my name is Mauro. I had a question about this, but is this a good time to talk? I really like that line because that gives the other person an opportunity to say, you know what, yeah, right now is a good time. Or it also gives them the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm actually in the middle of something right now. Do you mind if I give you a call back in a couple minutes? Or can you call me back at this time? All right, great, sure thing. I'll go ahead and give you a call back. And then lastly, ending the call on a pleasant note, right? Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you answering my questions. I'm looking forward to hearing back from you. Or again, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great day. Again, setting that tone at the beginning and at the end of the conversation really goes a long way, because who's to say that if you kind of have like a negative tone and you end up talking to that person again the next time, if they're gonna reciprocate that negative tone towards you, or that negative behavior. So you want to make sure that you're mindful of that as well. Like I mentioned, answering calls, voicemails, definitely important. So say, for example, when you do get somebody on the line, make sure that you're keeping it professional, right? I know like sometimes, students, or even I find myself talking in slang, and it's like, wait a minute, like maybe let me revisit that. Maybe I can say this in a different way. So again, be mindful of how you're trying to get your point across. Location, if you're expecting a phone call, and at a specific time, try to be in a location where it's quiet, there isn't so much noise going on in the background. If I'm waiting to hear from an employer at 2 p.m., I don't want to be in downtown LA where it's going to be super noisy. It's rush hour, lunchtime. I want to be able to hear the other person, and I want them to also be able to hear me. And so just like I mentioned in the previous slide, where I said, is this a good time to talk? You're also in that position to say, if you get a phone call and maybe that moment isn't the best time to talk, you can absolutely say that. Like, you know what, I'm actually out and about right now. Do you mind if I give you a call back in an hour? Or can you give me a call back in a couple of minutes? Because the last thing you want to do is stay on the phone with that person and they're giving you like really important details. And one, you don't have something to write with, or two, you think you can catch it all, but there's just so much noise in the background that a lot of it just kind of gets jumbled up in your head. So again, definitely feel comfortable saying, let me give you a call back, or can you call me back in a little bit? Now, if the call goes to voicemail, please make sure that you have an appropriate voicemail set up on your phone. I've heard many voicemails, right, both from students and professionals that don't necessarily sound appropriate, right? I know back then, I don't know if people still do this, but they used to do the whole like hello, like I gotcha, like just leave a voicemail. That's probably not the most appropriate voicemail to have. Yeah, sure, it's funny, but if you're, again, expecting a call from an employer, if you're waiting to hear back from an academic advisor, they're probably not going to appreciate that joke as much as like a friend or a family member. Right here in the top right corner, I have hi. If you'd like to speak to the head of the household, meow loudly. Again, probably not the best voicemail. So again, just keep in mind that all of these things do kind of leave an impression on the person who's calling you. So just make sure that they're appropriate. Um, Make sure that your inbox or your voicemail box is in full, right? I've also, called students and I'll get that message like, oh, the person you're trying to reach has a voicemail box that, is full. You can't leave a message at this time, right? That makes it hard for this other individual to, try to get a hold of you. And like I said, having a professional voicemail recording. Hi, my name is Mauro. I can't get to your call at this time. If you can leave me your name, your number, and a brief message, I'll go ahead and give you a call back. Thanks. Something simple, doesn't have to be super long or elaborate, just straight to the point. And then we can go ahead and talk about, again, like actually leaving a voicemail, because that's also important. So when leaving a voicemail, same thing, you want to be short, concise, and to the point. So we have here on the right-hand side, kind of like a how to leave a professional voicemail, a couple of tips that you can follow. Feel free to make it your own, right? It doesn't have to be like to the T, like first, last name, leave your phone number this many times. It's whatever feels the most comfortable to you. But definitely we want to make sure that you are hitting these points. So if I'm calling Gus and he doesn't answer, I can leave a quick message like, hey, Gus, this is Mauro. I'm calling you because I had a question about XYZ. If you can just give me a call back at my, XYZ number, I would really appreciate it. And then you can repeat that number one more time, or you can just leave it off at that point. Look forward to hearing from you, or looking forward to getting a call back from you. Again, short, simple, and to the point. So at this point, we can play the video. It's a really quick video. And then we can kind of go over it after.
Do you know what really grinds my gears? People that don't know the correct way to leave a voicemail. You shouldn't speed through it. You should speak very clearly. Let's see what happens when it's done the wrong way.
Good afternoon. My name is Philbert Morris. I'm calling about the Registration Agency of America, and I just want to let you know that we've got some money for you, and we need you to pick it up as soon as possible. If you don't, you will lose your chance at it. Basically, I need you to call 333-444-555-6787. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Hope to hear from you soon. Goodbye.
Now, everything about that was wrong. You couldn't hear what was happening. You couldn't get the phone number. It's nothing worse than having to listen to a voicemail the second time. Now let's see what happens when it's done the correct way.
Hi, this is Cassidy with Town Square Media. I was calling to get some more information about your event you had coming up. If you could call me back at 266-5252, I would appreciate that. Again, that is 266-5252. Thank you. Bye.
Proper phone etiquette makes all the difference in the world, especially if you want to get your point across professionally and expediently.
So again, similarly to what that video said, you can really tell the difference between the first voicemail and the second one. In that first voicemail, kind of towards the end, you couldn't even really understand what that person was saying. It was just kind of like, there's a phone number, I need to call back for something. And so again, if you have to listen to a voicemail, over and over again to just kind of get the gist, then that voicemail probably isn't clear, or it's a little bit too long. So again, something short and simple and to the point is, totally great. Just exactly what that person needs to hear. And then same thing, you'll just be able to, wait for their callback. And then, so in terms of phone etiquette, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But if not, we can move over to our Zoom etiquette section as well. So I know that when it comes to Zoom, over this last year and a half and some change, we've been living in this virtual world. So I'm not going to go over Zoom too much because I'm sure you all kind of have it down. But the reason we want to cover it is because we feel like this is going to be still a primary method of communication that's kind of going to stick around for quite some time. So, just kind of some of the points that we have here. When it comes to your attire, just make sure you're dressing appropriately. Pretend that you're going to either a virtual interview or you're meeting somebody in person. So whatever you would wear to that is typically what you would wear when you're either trying to contact somebody or you're going to jump into like office hours with a professor. Backgrounds. There's been a ton of funny backgrounds that have come up during this pandemic to kind of like keep things funny, keep like the humor going. For example, like I put on here like the Family Guy like living room, and then like I put up a little SpongeBob one. Again, these are funny and they're cool, but there's also a lot going on in them, right? A lot of things can definitely be a little bit distracting. The one on the right hand side, you see SpongeBob just kind of like peeking out, and then like the one on the like on the top left corner, there's like a little snail. I don't know SpongeBob, so I don't know the characters' names, but there's a lot going on in these. So sticking with a neutral background, just like the third one here at the bottom, something plain in the back. There's like a couple of little like notebooks and books on the right hand side with a little, like house plant, something simple to just kind of like, give some, little like refreshing sense in your background. Sometimes it's cool, or sometimes even just a neutral color. And like it's mentioned here, these three I was able to just find like with a quick Google search. So, you can definitely do the same thing. I'm sure you all have like even funnier ones already stored in here, like laptops, and then some like professional ones as well. And then similarly, in terms of sound, make sure that your sound is clear. I like using headphones because they have this like little like microphone speaker thing here, kind of makes you sound a little bit more clear, or hopefully that's the goal. And then same thing when I'm listening to an individual speak, I can just hear a little bit better with the headphones on. So and then in the next slide, we have a couple of things that again, just along the same lines as of Zoom etiquette. I feel like a lot of us already practice this, but I think like three that I really want to touch on is be on time, right? So some of us maybe want to log in a minute or two before our actual meeting just to check our audio, our visuals, make sure everything is working correctly. And if at that point it's not, then we can fix it. Limit distractions, right? So similarly, I'm sure you can hear my dogs barking right now, right? That's probably a distraction in itself. But just being in a space where there's not a lot going on behind you is definitely really helpful for the other person. And then lastly, being prepared, right? So charging your computer, making sure it's plugged in, or even just making sure that it's yeah, exactly, perfect timing. Making sure that it's plugged in, or that you have your charger ready so that if it is low battery, then you're good to go on that end. So so yeah, so again, didn't want to cover Zoom etiquette too much because we've been you all have been practicing it a lot over these last couple of months. But yeah, any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But if not, I can hand it over to Olivia.
Everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and cover first impressions. And so I know in this virtual world, or this kind of like in between world that we're in, we have to kind of go between virtual first impressions, in-person first impressions. But there's a lot of things that are going to go, the same for both of them. So we're just going to cover a couple topics so you can be prepared, right? So in a more casual setting, maybe you're going, you're to your orientation, you're meeting students on campus, or if it's a more professional setting, right, you always want to make sure that you're making a good first impression, right? So first impressions really only take a few seconds for people to make them, right? I think it's like within the first 30 seconds, people have a first impression of you, right? Whether that's, spot on or maybe it's wrong, right? That's the impression that they're going to have for you. So you really want to take care of how you're presenting yourself, especially for that first time. You want to make sure that you're checking how you yourself are feeling before going into that situation, right? Are you really nervous? Are you out of traffic and you're really frustrated and stressed, right? Anything that you're coming into that situation with is probably going to be portrayed to that new person, right? So just check how you're feeling. Maybe you have to like shake it out a little bit before you go into that new situation, because you always want to put your best foot forward, right? Like if I show up to a Zoom meeting and I'm having a bad day and I'm just, hi, how are you, right? My student's not going to know that like I had a really stressful day. Like I want to make sure that I'm like, hi, how's it going? I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for meeting me, right? Regardless of what's going on, it's not the other person's fault, right? So you want to make sure that they feel welcomed and that they feel like they can, they do have that good first impression. And practicing that with somebody, whether it's with a friend or even with Mauro, myself, or Gus, you can always practice that too. If you're going into a more professional situation, maybe an interview or like a professional networking event, and you want to practice that, that's always a good idea, right? Maybe you do some things that you're not aware of. Maybe you tend to do this to your hair a lot, right? You have like a little thing that you do when you're nervous, right? So those are things that are important to know right off the bat. So when you do go in, you can feel like, all right, I'm not fidgeting, I feel calm, and I feel confident to go in. Right? And you always want to make sure that you're yourself and that you're genuine. I'm sure we've all met people right away where it's like, wow, I can't really tell who you are. Is this really you? So you want to make sure that like you're yourself, right? You don't want to be someone you're not, right? That's not a good first impression, right? Because if someone follows up with you and you're somebody totally different, that's not genuine. And you can really see through that. And again, I'm sure we've all met people that we can tell right away, like, oh, I'm not sure if this connection is really something that's genuine between us. It's really important. So then moving on, a lot of the other stuff that we've talked about in terms of like dress and presentation, you want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately for the situation, right? If you're not sure what that dress code is, always opt for the more professional option. Dress on the side of a dressier outfit. And it's also okay to ask, right? If you're going into a more professional situation or maybe, like I said, a networking event, it's okay to ask too what the dress code is. And it depends on, the situation, right? If it is a casual event, that's totally fine as long as you know that. Okay. You also want to make eye contact. That's also really important too. You want to make sure people know that you're listening to them and that you're engaged in that conversation with them. Right? Because nobody wants to feel like you're meeting somebody, they're not looking at you, they're on your phone, or even if you're on Zoom, you're looking down, you're looking away, right? You want to make sure that that person feels that there's that connection, right? And then if you're meeting in person, having a firm handshake, right? That, again, comes off as confident, you're self-assured, and that you know what you're doing once you get in there. I know right now in COVID, maybe we're not shaking hands, so just have a strong, engaging greeting, right? If that's, hi, I'm so happy to meet you, maybe you press your hands or to make it clear that you're not going to shake hands. And it's also okay to ask too, right? Are you comfortable shaking hands? So that we can just move forward with that. That's something we're all going to have to get used to. Then we have a question. How do you know when there is too much eye contact? Oh, that's a good one. Right? I'm sure we've been in those situations too where someone's just like staring you down. We don't want to do that either. I think natural, right? Look up. You want to make sure if you don't want to stare into their eyes, it's like really uncomfortable, but somewhere in the upper half of their face, right? If you want to focus maybe like on their forehead, it's something that we do when presenting too. I'm not going to really stare at students. I'm going to maybe look above the crowd or maybe to the side a little bit. So that way it's not uncomfortable for both parties. But yeah, that's a really good question. You don't want to make someone feel like you're staring into their soul, like as you're meeting them. It's really like off-putting.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on Olivia, if you look at when one of us is presenting and the other two, like when I was presenting, Olivia and Maud were following along, and right now that Olivia's presenting, Maud and I are following along. Like you'll see us like we'll nod in agreement, or we're just kind of like because it shows that we're listening, we're attentive listeners. So that's what you want to do, right? You don't want to just stare at somebody. You want to like nod in agreement. Yes, I understand what you're saying. So it doesn't come off as you're just being creepy. It comes off as like, oh, this person is listening to what I have to say. So that's another good like body language as well when you're listening to somebody.
Yeah, that's super important, like body language, how you're coming into that situation. Are you really slumped over, or maybe you're too relaxed and you're leaning back? Or you want to make sure it's pretty professional, right? You're sitting up straight, you have your hands in front of you, you're not really like, looking too relaxed. And then something else you want to think about as you're going into these first impression situations is your elevator pitch, right? So if you're not sure what an elevator pitch is, I'll go over it very briefly. It's really just who you are in a nutshell, right? So if it's a professional situation, who you are in a minute, right? Very brief description of who you are, so that person who's meeting you has a very brief synapse of what you're about, right? If it's meeting another student for the first time, right? Hey, name, school, major, and this is what I'm interested in, right? So just something very quick so that person can get a brief idea of who you are and like what your values are. And then again, just know the situation and the setting, right? Is it something where you do need to be more attentive to how you're dressed and everything, or is it a little bit more of a relaxed situation, right? So just know those details. And yeah, and any more questions about first impressions, you can go ahead and drop them in the chat. Keep moving on. All right, so we're gonna go on to social media etiquette. This is the big one, right? I think, especially now, we're all in this virtual world, so social media has kind of taken a bigger role in everybody's lives than it already has, right? So I found this really great graphic for online etiquette or netiquette, right? So internet etiquette. So I think it had some really great pointers. That's why I wanted to include it. So when you're posting online, right, like you are now a college student, so that comes with a little bit different territory, right? Some of you are looking for internships, looking for jobs, or just, creating this new presence online now that you are, right? So it's really important that you're aware of what you're posting and just the details of what that is in the audience. So we'll go over it pretty briefly this slide. So necessary. Do people need to know what it's about, right? Some people will tweet all day, right? And that's what they do, but you really want to take a step back and look at your social media habits, right? Are you posting online all day? And what is the purpose of it, right? Is it for more social purposes? Are you trying to network with your peers? Or are you trying to land an internship or job, right? Exemplary, right? Are you portraying your best self? You get to decide how you want to put your best foot forward in the digital world. So what does that look like for you, right? And are you portraying your best self? Thought-provoking, right? What's the point of your post? Do you want people to really engage with it, think about it, or is it something for laughs? Is it a meme? Does it show who you are as a person, your ideas, right? Is it quotable? So again, the snapshot of who you are as a person. If someone were to grab this from your Twitter page or from your Snapchat or Instagram, would this be a good representation of you? Would you be happy of this quote, right? um, Understandable. What's the tone of this post, right? Like we talked about before, in person, if you're not in person, it's really hard to understand tone. So how is that coming across, right? That's really important. Again, it's a public platform. Even if you think it's private, right? It's out there for the world. So again, what are you putting out there? Again, kind of following into, is it necessary? Essential. What's the purpose of it? Trustworthy. So if you're posting links, right, what are you actually posting? Have you vetted that source if you're sharing something with people? The same thing with true. Don't lie about stuff. Don't just start posting things that maybe you aren't sure of. And then again, the intent, right? So very quick social media pointers, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail. So some more do's and don'ts, right? So again, with the point of social media, you want to network, right? You want to connect with people, but you want to do so responsibly. So again, make sure that what you're posting is the best representation of who you are and what you want to put out there, because it's going to live on the internet forever, right? You do want to make sure that you're maintaining boundaries on social media, right? So as you start adding different people, or maybe you start expanding what you're using your social media for, it's okay to put boundaries up and not accept certain friend requests or unfollow certain pages or people, right? You want to make sure that you're crafting the digital world and experience that you want, and that's going to, again, be the best representation of yourself. Test your privacy settings. This is really, really important. Again, just because your profile says private doesn't mean it necessarily is private. So you can ask someone like, hey, can I look at my account through your profile? Or you can make another account, kind of see where it's at. But you always want to test it out to see what people are actually seeing, right? I don't know how many times I've thought, like on Facebook, when it was still a thing, right, when people used it, that pictures were only viewable by certain people, and they come to find out, oh wow, like it's public and everybody can see it, right? But I thought it was private. It wasn't, right? So it's really important that you do test those settings and see what people can actually see. And post things about that you're proud about, right? Like it doesn't always have to be about other people's achievements, but you can post about yourself a little bit. That's fine. And again, as you start growing your professional network, you want to start posting professional achievements too. What you don't want to do, I would say very early on, don't request your employer on social media, especially like as a personal friend, right? You want to make sure that you maintain boundaries, right? Those professional relationships. And then, depending on the company, maybe you work at a social media company or a communication company and everybody has their professional social medias. Then in that case, obviously it's part of the job, part of the world, and you would go ahead and do that. But general rule, not a good idea. Do not add those questionable college party pictures. So all of you, you are all young adults, right? At various ages. So regardless of whatever you're doing is acceptable for the setting that you're at, it's probably not a good idea to post it online. Again, it may be fun in the moment, but definitely you don't want to put it out there for the world to see. And it's okay to ask people to not tag you pictures or to remove tags to or pictures that you're not comfortable with. Setting boundaries, right? Just because someone else thinks it's funny, maybe it's not funny to you. And again, that type of presentation you're trying to portray. And then try to stay away from posting like negative images or comments, right? I know it's really popular to you see social media fights, but those things go viral. And even if you think people don't see it, it will come up, right? Even if you think that you're not a friend with somebody, if someone has a mutual friend or follows a certain page, they can also see those comments. You just want to be very careful of what you're posting. quick tips. As you're looking for jobs and internships, employers do look at your social media, right? Whether it's formally or informally, hiring managers will look at it, right? And so if the first thing is on there, if you at a college party, they may do like a double take. Oh, do I really want to move forward with this person, right? And for you, maybe that's just one moment in time, 1 minute of that picture. But again, those pictures live on forever on the internet, and you create a first impression. Anything you post can affect your ability to get a job, right? Again, social media is forever, so again, just be careful. And we covered private does not always mean private. You always want to know your audience, right? Again, are you posting for family, friends, right? You just want to make sure that whatever you're posting is not going to offend people, right? Again, just be conscious. And then again, you get to decide how you're represented online. So Google yourself, see what comes up, and see, what is out there, right? There may be some things that you didn't even know would come up, pictures or maybe achievements, right? So Google yourself, see what comes up, and it can give you a good starting place of what your social media and online presence is. So thank you. That's what we have for you. We have our emails here, so if you have questions and want to follow up, you can definitely reach out to us.
All right, so we really hope that you got a lot out of this presentation. We did record it so you can view it at a different time. But we just want to, everything that you learned here today, we want you to stick with it and continue to grow from it. Because there's, you want to make sure that it's just not something that's going to go in one ear and not the other. We want to make sure that you put this into practice because it's extremely important. And all we're really trying to do is help you and set you up for success. But besides that, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. Take care, everybody.